Yeah. I can keep it over.
This is for
Oh, okay.
It turns out you need Wi-Fi to play.
Oh, you got a little candy crush.
Okay, so buenos días.
Yes.
¿Cómo estás? So bien, good job. That's two things that I can speak now. Now, we'll continue our lecture, but before we continue, do you have any question? No? Let's discuss about what we saw yesterday during our hike that related to the adaptation. you just kind of discuss it, before this class. So anything that you see that make you wonder, yeah, why this plant, especially plant because they stay, right? They do not run away. Why this plant kind of this, root, there's a root that's really big. Why this, perhaps these plants, kind of wiggling to another plant. So why this plant has this type of flower, for example, colorful and etc. And you saw also animals, and then I was very grateful when we are able to make a video of that quetzals, male and female. You can imagine that it's a very rare opportunity. Our coordinator Seti, she said that he came to that place 5 times, only twice to see whether male or female. And we did it. We saw both of them. It's not only showing, but can show other people that we really show it by, I'm taking that video and picture. I thought the first, the female is not a female quetzal, but actually after I put on the iNature identification, it's, give the, yes, it is the female quetzals. Wonderful. I was so happy. How about you? Did you happy?
Yeah, it was really cool.
Very cool. Now, can you tell, start with, look, do you observe just one plant or one animal that you think
Yeah,
kind
there was a thing that our guide sort of mentioned, but didn't really spend a lot of time on. A lot of the trees at that sort of altitude in that cloud forest were covered in a sort of moss or like moss-like plant.
Yes.
It seemed like a very sort of archaic plant, but all of them were covered. And I was trying to think, why here is this sort of happening? But I'm thinking that the plant that was growing on these trees and stuff, it sort of couldn't sort of just grow independently. So it, at that sort of altitude, it latches on to trees and spreads that way, other than through other sort of ways.
Yes, that's good observation. You really appreciate now when we talk about tropical rainforest. And then when you walk on that track, on the walking track, and then you see all wet. That's the reason why it's called what? Tropical wet forest, tropical rainforest. That's one of the adaptation for many mosses, right? They like to live in the wet condition. They can live any place actually. It's not only in the soil, they can live on the other trees. That mosses, lichens, what you call lichens over there. It's just like, the beard hanging around within the tree. You can also find it in the wet soil around it. Yeah, that's type of their adaptation. They just make that opportunity for them to life to grow. That's a good observation for that type of mosses or type of bryophytes and lichens. How about you, Jonathan?
I feel like one thing that was interesting was the quetzals.
The quetzal, okay.
That the male was all colorful and the female was just brown. And I think I guess the scientific explanation is mainly for mating.
Mating, yes, that's the first.
Almost like the peacock. The male peacock has
beautiful. Yeah.
Something like that is mainly just for mating purposes.
Attract the female.
Attract the
Yeah.
female.
Okay. Yeah. And then if you read the book, the Our Evolution book, it actually mentions about the what you call the in the creation. It said that everything created in a good shape, right? In a perfect shape. Eh? So, in that book is actually criticize about this male altruism. We call it altruism, right? It is considered in that book. It's considered it's not that perfect. The creation is not that perfect. Why male have to be sacrifice themselves with that bright color on the field when actually the predator can you know see them easily. But if you think about the other roles of that female, the other needs of that female is to attract female and then to make a lot to interbreed and produce a lot of babies. That's actually a perfect, for me, that's a perfect creation. So, these males don't really care about their own life, but they care, it's okay for me to sacrifice, but our children will be there. It will continue my species. Okay, so you can try to read again the evolution book. What is the title of the book?
Why evolution
Why
is
is
true.
Why evolution is true is kind of actually this book is mostly criticize the creationism, right? But again, I am a religious person too, so I can kind of connect it. Again, it's nothing wrong being evolutionist and you know uh, religions at the same time because it can be connected. It is not really something that you have to fight about. Yeah. How about you? What kind of observation that you saw that related to evolutions?
Yes. So
Hania. Okay, Hania. Yes.
yesterday on the hike, the guy was talking about was pointing out certain plants
Mhm.
along the trail
Mhm.
that whose leaves indicated who had an indicator for hummingbirds to visit because of their flowers without having any flowers. He was
Okay.
pointing out. I took a picture of it. I can't remember what he called it, and I was just looking it up and I couldn't find it. But it's basically like these red marks
Okay.
behind leaves
Uh-huh.
that flower plants for hummingbirds to come to.
Uh-huh.
And so I was thinking about how perhaps hummingbirds. I don't know what colors they can see, but I guess red is one of the colors
They like it.
that they like or
Mhm.
that is
Attract
most
them.
attractive to them.
Mhm.
So that seems like kind of an evolutionary uh, characteristic that they
Okay.
would search for that color, or maybe it's like the color that is most easily visible to them, right? Like,
Okay.
so that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Good observation. This is actually we're gonna talk about this. It's called the co-evolution, but maybe not today. Maybe tomorrow or next week when we meet again, because we have to finish the fossil and some anatomy and embryology, evidence. But after that, we go to the co-evolution. It's actually telling us how the hummingbird actually choose, the flowers. They actually growing together, they actually, what we call the co-evolve. Co-evolve. It's co-evolve. So it's co-evolution. We're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about camouflage and mimicry also tomorrow. Okay, Elmer. What kind of observation that you
So this was accident. This was like I accidentally observed this.
accidentally? You not really observe it accidentally. Okay, what is that?
I was making observations, but this was the most profound accidental observation.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I realized when we was hiking up that we seen like all the lichen on the trees, like
Lichens,
the trees were
mhm.
like the bark was smooth,
Yes.
but on the descent, like I think there was this one tree to where I grabbed it and I got poked and I got like
Oh, the whole.
things right here, and I
Mhm.
noticed that there weren't any there were barely any lichen
Mhm.
growing on it. At least not the same type as the ones that was growing on the smooth bark.
Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah, the lichen can be any type. It can be just smooth with a white patches. That's a lichen too, and there may be like the goatee. That's a as long as they are combination between algae and the fungi, we call them as a lichen. Yeah, community of lichens. They actually help one another. The algae help providing the oxygen, food, okay, for the fungi, and the fungi creating the place for the algae to grow together. Okay, that's a good also observation too, about lichen, how this association, that we call the association within organism. There are symbiotic association, there are non-symbiotic association. We might also talk about this type of association later. Okay? All right. It's good. Now we continue our lecture. Okay, so last time I think we stopped in fossil, right? The first evidence of evolution, which is fossil record. We already talked about this Archaeopteryx, Tiktaalik, also we mentioned it. And now we go to this era, which is the time scale for the evolution. Okay, the first time scale is called the Precambrian era. I will not asking you to memorize all different time or different epoch or whatever on that era. Just the four main type. Yeah, what is the four main type? Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic. That's four. And then you're gonna learn what is happening during that four different time scale. Now, Precambrian. The name is telling you is before things, before life. Before life. This is a Precambrian. During this era, is a consider the Earth is actually formed about 4,500 million years ago. So the Earth is really old, and it keeps changing. The Earth that we have right now is not the same with the Earth that start 4,500 million years ago. Okay, now during that time, of course, there is no life, but any place, remember we learned about what is the smallest unit of matter? Atoms. And the atom create molecules. And during that time, yes, there is no living, but there is something, which is the atoms and molecules. And these atom and molecules, they keep combining to make different molecules. And finally, it make molecules that can be supportive for living. Is it right? Now, if you take chemistry, you might learn about the process of making organic molecules from inorganic molecules. I think this research is done by Miller and Urey. It's around 1953 something. Did anybody take the chemistry and talking about this evolution of non-living, not living yet, because it should be evolved from non-living things, from gas and molecules.
You're talking about the experiment that had the sort of whole apparatus, and they would put it under conditions.
Gas. Gas, simulated
and they
gas.
were able to do it.
Then they are able to produce what we call the nucleic acid from this inorganic molecule, from gases, which is inorganic. Remember, simple molecules, and then combine into bigger molecule, and they found out it's able actually to create the nucleic acid. The amino acid. Amino acid is actually the monomers of proteins, part of the protein, right? Organic molecules. That research actually, if we go back to this time, scientists relate this experiment with the possibility of these gases, atoms that present in this early Earth, that combine to making organic molecules. At least, based on the Miller and Urey, they can make the amino acid. Okay? Now, and then there is another theory, okay, during in the bottom of the sea at that time, there are a lot of vents, vents, right, which is hot condition. And then according to the theory, this is evolution, the first proto-bionts, proto mean primitive, bionts mean living, is actually, they say, is created around this. So based on this information, then we can tell that life come from water, because this is in the water, right? And then in this theory, they mentioned that there are several molecules, yeah, that actually able to create a lipids, lipids, the phospholipid, and then it's kind of trapping another molecule inside it, and the molecule inside that trapping lipids, it look like a cell membrane, right? Trapping that, it's finally created the amino acid and then protein, and some actually can create the nucleic acid, which is what? Which is the inheritance, the structure that able to replicate. And that's the theory about the process of making the first type of cell. And this first type of cell is called the protobionts. Protobionts. Okay, protobionts. Okay, now it's easy to connect that protobionts into creation of the first type of cell, which is the cell that do not have nucleus. What you call that cell? A group of organisms that do not have nucleus? Prokaryotes. Now, from that protobionts evolve into what we call the prokaryotic cell. And the first prokaryotic cell is going to be very, very primitive, very simple, but it's then evolved to make a speciation, then we can call this a speciation, into different type of prokaryotic organism. At least there are two lines for this, because there are two type of prokaryotic organism. Anybody still remember the two type of prokaryotes? Bacteria, archaea. Good job. Bacteria and archaea. So it's created this line for bacteria and another line to create the archaea. You follow this? And then what happened? Most of the archaea is really similar with especially the cell walls, with the plant, the cell membrane, and the inside with other organisms. So from this, then many scientists believe the other organism, the other higher type of organism, is actually evolved from archaea, not from the bacteria. You follow this, right? Yeah. So archaea now creating the common ancestor for many different type of organism. Higher. What is the second type of organism after prokaryote? It is already eukaryote, but it is very simple. What you call that group?
Eukaryote?
Yeah. What is the most primitive type of eukaryote?
Porifera?
Porifera is animal. It's already.
Protozoa?
Protozoa? Protozoa, one of them. But in general, protist. Are you with me? Protist. This is the reason one over here. It's mentioned that the first protist is also evolved during this Precambrian. You follow this? So this gives two lines also for the protist, right? The one that lines the cell that carry chloroplast, and the other line is for the cell that do not carry chloroplast. Can you follow this, right? This is how the theory of evolution, actually, the story is work, because nobody really know what happened. Nobody lived during that time. But from this logical perspective, we can follow this. So there are going to be two lines from this archaea to make the line that have chloroplast and the line that do not have chloroplast. So the one that have lines to create chloroplast then give you the specific type of protist. What do you call them?
Algae.
Algae. And then the second line is the one that do not have chloroplast, is create the protozoa. You follow this, right? That's all happening here during this Precambrian era. How many years? From 4,500 million years ago to 630 million years ago. How many million years? A lot. 3 million something years. Okay. Right. 3 million something years they evolved from the very primitive type of protobionts, and then prokaryote, the first prokaryotes, and then become some primitive protists evolved during this era. Right? And then at the end of this era, some of the chloroplast algae or the protist is created plant. Okay, but according to this, there are some also that evolve into the primitive animal. Okay, so look, talking about the porifera, right? That's actually invertebrate. Now it's evolved at the end of this era. So now animals start to grow. It's the most primitive animal is called the porifera. That's the most primitive animal actually. Okay, they don't have really tissue, no tissue in this primitive invertebrate or animal. Okay, that era is end, and then go to the next era. What we call it, Paleozoic. It starts from 630 to 250 over here. So it's about 300 million years. This era happening. It's less than the Precambrian. It means that the evolution is faster and faster, right? During the previous era, taking about 3,000 million years to evolve from one shape into another shape. Now there are so many shapes, so many species, so many organisms evolved during this second era within just 300 million years, but it's actually a long time. But it's compared to the first one, it's considered a shorter time. And what happened? Now you have the invertebrate. You're gonna start to have the first vertebrate actually. The first vertebrate also evolved over here, which is a group of fish that do not have jaw. Jawless fish. It's called the Agnatha fish. The one that's still alive right now, there are two types of jawless fish that alive that evolved from the previous one. Is the lamprey and the hagfish. I don't know. I saw the lamprey before. I'm not sure about seeing the the hagfish. But they don't have jaw. What don't have jaw mean? There is no bone on their mouth. Jaw is actually the bones on the mouth. So this Agnatha, the jawless fish, they don't have jaw. So this is the first fish that's evolved. And then from there, it's gonna be what? For the fish, if we follow the evolution for the fish, for example, then it start to create the Gnatha. Gnatha means jawfish. But the first one evolved is going to be the fish that do not have the bone is not actually ossified. Anybody know what is ossified mean?
Bony? Or like
Bony, yeah, bony. That's what we call the bony. Ossified bony means it's a lot of calcium in it, hard. So the first fish that developed will be what we call the chondrichthyes. Chondrocyte mean what is not bone? Before bone, cartilage. Yeah, cartilage. You see the cartilage. Even sometimes some animals still have cartilage. if you eat chicken over here, that's still really soft. That not bone, it's cartilage, right? So the first one evolved in this group is gonna be cartilaginous fish or chondrichthyes. Example, shark. Shark is very, very old creature. Right? Maybe they evolved from previous shark, but this shark is the first type of fish that's developed that has bone. But their bone is not bony. Their bone is cartilage. Shark. What is the other one that look like kite?
Stingray?
Stingray. Yes. Stingray is also cartilaginous fish. That's the first type of primitive fish. And from here, then develop into what? Into the Gnata with the bony bone. It's called the Osteichthyes. So it's developed here also. So Osteichthyes developed in the end of this Paleozoic era. Is human here yet?
No.
According to this, it's not. It's still some, maybe some reptile already there, right? But mostly fish evolution, if it is we're talking about animal, okay? Now, this is the time for Jurassic Park. During the Mesozoic era. Now the reptiles, they just growing so many type. You have the Jurassic era, you have the Triassic and etc. Okay, that's during what? During the Mesozoic era. You have a lot of reptiles. This is the year for reptiles. Big and small. Mean and what is the opposite of mean? Nice. Yeah. Mean and nice. Therefore, therefore, in the cartoon movie, you see the long neck. You see I'm watching the kid movie. The long neck. This is really nice type of what you call dinosaurs that eat leaf. Okay, and there is the T-Rex. That's really mean because what they eat. They eat people. Yeah, in that cartoon they eat people, or even in the Jurassic Park they eat people, right? Yeah, mean and nice, different type of reptile. This is their time. And what happened? There is a mass extinction. They gone, all most of them. And then this is the time now for what is after reptile, bird, and what is the last one? Mammals. Now is the time for mammal. The last era. It's called the Cenozoic era. Start from 65 million years ago to about 10,000 years ago. I think still until now. This is what we call the modern era. Okay, so this is the Cenozoic era, and especially for human, the modern human is considered as evolved about 10,000 or maybe 25,000 years ago. But if you talk about different type of human, because there are actually, according to this fossil record, or according to this evolution, there are another type of human. Therefore, they have different species name. There is a Homo erectus, there is Homo neanderthalensis. Yeah, that's actually mean that it's different species that it might also develop into modern human. And now we only have one type of human species called the Homo sapiens. Okay, can you follow this fossil record? Again, I hope you can understand this sequence, at least the general type of change that happened. Again, during the Precambrian, what happened? During the Precambrians, there will be evolution of molecules, from gases into organic molecules, and this organic molecule then evolve into the first type of cell. What do you call the first type of cell? Protobionts, and then from here create the new prokaryotic cell, and then evolve into bacteria, archaea evolve into different type other organism, including plant, animals, protists over there. Okay. Anybody have question for this first type of evidence?
I have
Yes.
a question when it came to considering, like, okay, maybe not so far back, like, considering the different geological timescales, but particularly considering, like, the geological exposure, from particularly here in Costa Rica. Would you happen to know, like, the age of the exposed land,
Yeah.
in this region? And I'm thinking about that because particularly yesterday when we were traveling
Yes.
when we were traveling, you could see the exposed earth,
Yeah.
but it was dirt. Like you could not see rock, or I didn't see any rock. So, do you have any comment on that?
Yes. So there's some area. We follow the what we call the geological cliff, and it's spirit, and there is also formations of land and formation of islands. Okay, many islands is actually coming from the bottom of the sea, where is the tectonic plate. They move. Mauritius, what is the name again? Maurice talking about that. There is a movement of this plate, and then from the bottom is going up, boom, it's create the mountain. In some area, that mountain have a rock that actually on that rock you're gonna see the fossil of oceanic or marine animals. Like the what you call the marine animal, that the clams, the mollusks. Yeah, a lot of mollusk fossil on it. Is actually how come on the mountain with a rock with a mollusk, and mollusk is not living in the forest. Mollusk live in the ocean. That's what happened. And then to know the age of that, then scientists usually using what? Carbon dating. So they might use that carbon dating to know the age of that soil. Okay, so that's answer your question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, like, so is it correct to consider that the land is younger than other land that we might
Yes.
have been?
Yeah. So it's just based on that carbon dating, it will tell whether the top is younger or older. Sometimes the older area can be flipped also to the top. Right? So therefore, it's carbon dating is relation. But in general, the top one is younger, the bottom one is older. That's in general for fossil, age. Okay. Anybody have question? Other question? We done with the fossil, right? You got it? Okay. Now we go to the second evidence, which is anatomy and embryology. Now you have to understand first, what does anatomy mean? Structure. So general term for anatomy means structure. So when we taking anatomy class, it means that we learning the structure. Sometimes the class is combined with physiology, right? Anatomy and physiology. What is the meaning of physiology? Function. So mostly structure, okay, this is very important. Structure can tell the function because there is a connection between structure and function. That's the reason why this class, usually anatomy and physiology, they combine together to make it easier to understand. Instead of you just study structure and later you study the function, it's not connected. So they put this, anatomy and physiology as one class in order to be easier to understand the structure and function. Because what? Structure, most of the time, fits with the function. You follow this? Look at my hand over here. Right? This is structure like that. Can you guess the function of my hand? Yes, easy. What? Grab, hit, whatever. You see what? Now, I'm going to show you the one that may be really, easy to understand, which is the mouth and the nose. Yeah? This is, before we go to the, our class, again, just give you the idea why structure It's really important to know the function. Mouth and nose. This is two different organs, right? My question is, do you think both of them has the hole? Hole? Yes. Now, what is the function of the hole? What is the function of hole? What do you think?
One of them smells, one of them
No, just general function. What is the function of hole? Enter or exit, right? Enter and exit. It means that this both organ over here, both have hole. It means that this organ has a function to enter and exit of something. Now we're gonna go to that specific function later. That's the general function first. Now look at the mouth. There is another structure in the mouth that you will not find it in the nose, but you have structure in the nose that you will not find it in the mouth, even though both of them has hole, right? Both of them used for exit and enter of something. You can see closely there are other components in it, another structure in it, then you're gonna tell, oh yeah, they have different structure actually and different function. What do you have in your mouth? Teeth, tongue, salivary gland, produce saliva. Now, what is the function of this? All of this additional structure.
Saliva breaks down the food.
Break down the food. The teeth, the same, grinding the food, and the saliva, movement of the food, and the sense of, delicious. Yeah, that's coming from there, from your tongue over there. Yeah, there is sensory system on the tongue. Called the bud taste or taste buds. Yeah, that's the reason why you can taste Budweiser, because what? There is a taste buds on your tongue. Now look at the nose. Do you see teeth? No. What do you see in the what do you see in the mouth, in the nose? Do you see hair?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you see burger, mucus? Now why?
To help trap
Trap, bacteria or dust. How about hair?
I think I learned this in middle school, but
A long time ago.
but my middle school teacher told me that like the air has like a small percentage of moisture. So like the nose hairs trap the moisture.
The moisture.
And that's why you get mucus in your nose.
Yeah. So you're trapping and also filtering the air. So your air gonna be at least cleaner going to your lungs. That's the reason why do not use mouth for breathing, because what? There is no component of filtration and trapping in the mouth. Yeah, you can breathe with your mouth, but it's not healthy. It's not healthy. Just for it. You can breathe out, that's okay. But breathe in, use the nose, because that's the function of the nose. Can you see the difference? Structure and function, fit, function. Okay, now the same thing with this. Hey, that's anatomy. Over here, according to the evolution, okay, the structure that closely present in the close relative organism, then is telling us they have the same ancestor, the same common ancestor. Therefore, even though the bird and maybe the horse, they are really different, right, in their morphology, but if you go closely to the bone structure, for example, especially they're talking about the wings and the front leg of the horse, they actually consist the same type of bones. The same type of bones. So they have humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpal, and phalanges. The one that may be different is their phalanges gonna be different number. Okay. Horse, how many phalanges the horse? How many toes the horse have?
One.
There's only one. Horse actually only have one. But the cow have two. So it's going to be later, you're going to also learn different type of this, mammal, horse and cow. One of them is called the artiodactyl, which is have the even number of toes, and the other one have on what is the opposite of even? odd number of toes. It's called the perissodactyl. You're gonna learn, for example, deer, periso, or artiodactyl. We're gonna learn that later. Okay? So that's this structure. Yeah? It's showing us different type of organism, from human. Yes.
I think in class I heard that the horse used to have 3 toes, but it has the remnant of the
Yes, on the back.
so can that be a vestigial?
It could be, but mostly in the classification they just put this horse just only have one hoof, Okay, the rest they don't really count it. Okay, so it's just one hoof or one toes only animal. Okay, so that's what we call the similarity of structure. And general term for this one is, anybody know what is the name? The same homologous structure. And again, it's telling what? Evolutionary, they have the same common ancestor for these different species. Okay, now we go to this one, okay? Vestigial structure. Again, the structure that never being used for many years, but still there, is called the vestigial. And vestigial for evolution, it is used for what? Again, as evidence of the common ancestor. So, like for example, this snake and the reptile, the lizard, they are really closely related. With the crocodile, alligator, for example, they are closely related. They have scales, they have teeth, they have bone structure that very similar. Except the snake, they lost their legs. And some snake still keep that legs. It's become vestigial status. Maybe if we find the boa later in the Monteverde, we're gonna try to flip it. Will we? Yeah. Anybody can grab snake? You can grab snake?
Earlier this trip.
Oh, the one that's the black one. Yeah. But be careful with the pit. Gonna be pit snake that is yellowish greenish with this. What is it called? It look like eyelashes.
Yeah, if I see those, it's a.
Yeah, it's a no.
I'm not
It's a no. Yes, it's a no. Yeah, it is very, very, very venomous. Yeah, venomous, not poisonous. You see the difference between venomous and poisonous, right? Frog and toad, they are poisonous, but it's not venomous. Snake, they are venomous, but not poisonous. Yeah. Mushroom, what do you think? Mushroom, poisonous or venomous? Poisonous. You remember, right? Okay. I will not tell you what is the difference. You know it already. Yeah? Venomous and poisonous. This is vestigial structure. And again, it's telling us there is connection between this. Us, we also have appendix. I already mentioned that there is connection between us and the animal that feed on plants, herbivore. We have the idea. Also in the teeth, actually, you can tell that we also actually the plant eaters. Why? We have this on the back. What do you call that? Teeth on the back? Molars, right? But we also have the teeth just like the carnivore, the meat eater. Canine, right? You see that? But it's not many. It's meaning that, yes, we have that connection with them. Are you with me? But it is not vestigial. I'm not talking about vestigial structure. This is a functional structure. I can bite with my canine. I can grind with my molars. But it's just telling us we are what we are. We are herbivore or carnivore? We are both. What do you call it? Omnivore. We can eat both. We have this ability. But dog, they are what? Carnivore. But some people now give them vegetable. Some dog that live in the house, sometimes the owner, instead of giving the meat, they giving the food, the cooking, which is the vegetable. Chicken, chicken. I have friend that they have the watermelons. They use it for feed the chicken, which is for chicken is actually really difficult to get that watermelon, right? It's just all water. But he said that his chicken and rooster like that watermelon. I don't know, because maybe just because they are very hungry, and then that's the one that the one that have they have to eat it. But anyway, again, structure is telling us the evolution is evidence also.
Well, actually, just like I think it was Jonathan who mentioned wisdom teeth. What is it about wisdom teeth?
Wisdom is just for human. I mean, it's just terminology for humans. Yeah. The reason is because the wisdom teeth sometimes is not really needed. It is crowded. So for the health, purposes, they take it out. Just to make sure that our teeth is nicely aligning over there. But if you don't take it, it's okay too. But normally it's there. For animal, they don't care. It's called wisdom teeth because it's actually not good for our health condition. If you make that teeth growing, it's gonna be crowded. Some people actually the teeth is not going nicely straight like this, and it's sideways. It's actually pushing the other teeth, the other molar teeth, and then causing some problem. So, of course, dentists, they have the way to they say, take it out, which is good actually. If your wisdom teeth taken out, is make your teeth is not that crowded. You still be able to grind. It's no problem. You can grind your food also without the wisdom teeth.
And where does it come from?
I mean, what do you mean? What come from? It is part of our teeth. So we have 30. Anybody know how many teeth adult have? 32. 32. That's the normal teeth. If you take all 4 wisdom teeth, how many teeth gonna be? 28. The 32 should be the normal number of teeth. It's not coming from everywhere. It is part of our normal of teeth. It's just definition, wisdom teeth. I don't know why they call it a wisdom teeth, but it's actually part of our teeth.
Okay. And evolutionarily, is there any significance?
The wisdom teeth, of course, is part of the molar. Is telling us we are herbivore.
Okay.
We eat plant. We eat trees. That's it. Okay. And if you compare within the number of molars and canine, which one is more?
More molar.
It means that it should be healthier for us to eat more meat or eat more veggie.
More veggie.
More veggie. Can you follow my That's actually gonna be related to our digestive function later, because most of the enzyme that we produce mostly helping us to to digest several type of food. And if you eat too much meat, for example, fat, for example, your digestive system is just give up because we don't have that many enzyme that help us with this digestion. Most of our enzyme is good for like carbohydrates, etc. Mostly. Therefore, eat more meat, causing some problem with cardiovascular problem and etc. Do you follow this? So that's the adaptation, That's the adaptation. That's the evolution too. Remember, evolution means adaptation to the natural selection. Okay, any other question? Yeah. You agree with us, and are you satisfied with us? Okay. So molar trait is no problem. You can grow it, or if you want to be healthier, take it out. I have my wisdom teeth. Take it also. Some dentists take all 4 at the same time, which is really, after that you're gonna be. You just have to eat liquid, maybe about 1 week, something like that. Yeah. Cannot eat, meat. No meat at all during that time. You can grind it very smooth. Okay. Anybody other have question? It's not vestigial. Okay? Remember, wisdom teeth is not vestigial. That's a normal structure. The next one is embryology. What does embryology mean? Development of embryo. Embryo is babies. That's the easiest one. It's coming from It's actually, there is a process on that one. What do you call when the eggs meet with the sperm? What do you call that process?
Fertilization.
No, meiosis is when your body creates sperm or eggs. It's meiosis. But after that, the sperm and the eggs meet. If it is human, they usually meet in called the fallopian tube, the uterine tube. That place, and the process is called fertilization. With that fertilization, there are actually two cells combined together, and this cell carry half chromosome, the sperm, and the other cell, the eggs, carry half of the chromosome. Right? They are haploid, and then combine. Boom! It's called the fertilization, creating a first cell that have double nucleus now, diploid. What do you call that cell? Zygote. No, gamete is sperm and egg is a gamete. When the gamete combine, it will make the zygote. So zygote is the first cell that has double chromosome, just like us, 46. Sperm 23, eggs 23, 46. And then from the zygote, it's gonna be divided. It's called the mitosis. Many times, boom, 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 boom. It created blastula, and then morula, and then this blastula and morula become blastocyst. This blastocyst move down from the fallopian tube into the uterus, uterine wall. Now it's become what? It's become embryo. This is growing into embryo. So the first development from zygote into what? Embryo. And the embryo, after several months, first month is just cell, not really tissue, not really organ. But after several months, maybe 4 months, 6 months, now creating the tissue and the organ. Then you can see become the head. At that time, then it's not embryo anymore. It's called the fetus. You see that one? They have different names. And then the fetus is the one that actually birth into what? What you call that's fetus that born out from the female. Baby. Now it's become baby. Now after the baby become young children, young adults, and etc. I just want to tell you that's the process. Now, during that process, from the zygote into the fetus, they have very similar development, especially on the first or the early weeks or early months of the embryology development. Therefore, it's called the embryology. It's not fetal, it's not fetal embryo, because when it is become fetus, they already differentiated between fish, amphibian, what is after amphibian? Reptile, bird, and mammals, right? 5 of them. During the fetus, they already changed. But during embryo, they are very similar. Therefore, it's called the embryology as evidence of evolution. During that embryo, they have similarity, very similar. Okay, I mentioned before, they have gill slit, they have tail, and etc. Yeah, that's the evidence. The next evidence is biogeographical evidence. And again, many times I mentioned to you, the easy example I always use Indonesia, because Indonesia is a nice example of the animals that live in this country. They are very nicely separated from western part and eastern part. It's showing us there is a biogeographical evidence for evolution for this group of animals here and the other group on the eastern part. Okay, so we will not discuss this more. Okay, you already got that. Okay, now the last one. We already also discussed this. What? The Pangaea, and then split into many continents. How many continents that we have right now? 7. Can you tell what is the biggest continent first?
Asia.
Antarctica is Asia. I don't know. Is maybe Asia. The one that have life is Asia. We get to Asia, and then Africa, Europe, yes, that's continent. America, yeah, North and South, yeah, and then Australia and Antarctica. You guys just one of them. But no life over there. Is very, very limited life. Maybe penguin, happy feet live there, dancing, singing. Okay, now is that we have right now all the continents, that we have right now. The continental drift making this different continent, and of course between continent there is islands, and islands. And I mentioned about this Indonesia, Eastern and Western. What do you call the line that separate them? Wallace. Who named this line? Wallace. I'm gonna name the line somewhere over here, Agus line. And the last one, DNA. What? And this is now the most accurate way to see close relationship between species. Even not only between species, even between family. You can tell this kid is belong to this family, this kid is belong to this family, even though it's the same species, right? The same human. Why? It is very accurate. The sequence of nucleotide, okay, the base. Anybody still remember again the name of the base, the 4 base in the DNA? Adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. What? They have different sequence in each organism. Even within the same family, they have different sequence that give us different morphology. So between you and your siblings, nobody the same. Even between the twins, they still have some differences, even though it may be really difficult to tell. But their mother able to tell. You see that one? If you have twins, let's say you have friend, twin, maybe for you it's really difficult which one is which. But their mother's able to differentiate. Why? DNA, no, not DNA. The mother gets used to, spying the other one, or maybe not the other one. And she knows which one is the naughty one, which one is the not naughty one, right? The voice is sometimes also different. Mother can tell, oh, this is A, this is B. Can you see why? This molecular biology. Even though they are twin, they still have differences in their molecular biology. Okay. This is just telling us the connection based on the molecular biology between different type of apes and monkey. This one we're gonna discuss this tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, not tomorrow. We don't have anything tomorrow. So this is actually will answer your questions about the hummingbird. Okay. We're gonna talk about co-evolution on the next meeting. Do you have questions? Oh, we already passed the. Really passed the. You don't tell me. Please, if we pass the time, please tell me. Sometimes when I'm talking, 45 minutes passing the time, right?
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, but okay, sorry, but again, because we don't have really
Clock.
the clock around here. But again, maybe we're gonna have less, lecture time next time. Okay. You have a good day, and then I believe we're gonna going to the Trapiche again today.
Yes. Yeah.